everyone, and welcome to the AwardsWatch podcast. I'm your host, Eric Anderson, editor-in-chief of AwardsWatch, and we just finished up the 2025 Telluride Film Festival, and we are recording live from the Hamptons Inn in gorgeous, wonderful Montrose, Colorado. And let's just get right to it. Let me introduce Ryan McQuaid.
We're playing Spin the Bottle on this episode, it seems like, because we're recording on the floor. Like
Hell,
Bruce Springsteen.
Exactly. This is pretty analog, actually.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. I like that.
Deliver me to Montrose.
Exactly. Sophia Seminello.
Hi guys. When I say I want a summer in the Hamptons, I don't usually mean Montrose, but that's okay this time.
We do what the best that we can.
We do.
We have Mark Johnson.
Hello, everyone.
And Christina Biro.
Hello, thank you all for having me and for spending time with me up at Telluride and in Montrose.
We're going to jump right in. It's a very short festival, and sometimes it feels a little too short. We don't get to see everything that we want to, and we have a lot to talk about. We're going to go through the fact that the opening night is full of very competitive world premieres and how we decide to see the things we see, because we all did a little bit of slightly different lineups. We had the world premieres of Chloe Zhao's Hamnet, of Scott Cooper's Springsteen Deliver Me from Nowhere, and Edward Berger's Ballad of a Small Player. Kind of a lot in a very short period of time. And I'm going to just shoot right over to Ryan. What was your opening night like?
My opening night was one film, and that's it. On the whole day. I saw Hamnet. Chloe Zhao's latest film, like Eric said, and I loved it. Yeah. Do I keep going?
No, we'll talk more about Hamnet in just a minute.
That was my experience. I mean, like, I was invited to a lovely party hosted by Netflix, and then everybody here went to other things, and I did not stay for the patron screening because me and Palo Sorrentino don't mix, and I was like, I could take a nap somewhere else, and then you guys went and saw another film, and I went and talked with some other people, and I just made sure that we had our seats ready for Chloe Zhao's film.
All right, and to that point, La Grazia was the patron screening of the afternoon, which was kind of up in the air. We predict and pontificate based on knowledge, tea, and guessing of what that movie is going to be, and that is the movie that shows right after the press screening and for the main patrons of the festival, and that was Paolo Sorrentino's La Grazia. And I did not see it myself, but we did have people that did see it. And I'd love to hear, Sophia, your thoughts on La Grazia really briefly.
Yeah, so I am also not a huge fan of Paolo Sorrentino, but I was in the room already and decided I would give it a try because I had heard some good things about it from Venice, since it was a carryover from that festival. And Julie Hunsinger, the festival director of Telluride, said that it was Paolo Sorrentino's best film. So I said, okay, let's see, because his last few films have not really worked well for me, but I did actually enjoy this one. I think it has a really strong lead performance. I think the first bit of it is a little bit slow and very kind of classical Paolo Sorrentino. I was joking with this group, like a lot of beep, beep, boop, boop sounds throughout it. A lot of those kind of little dance moments, but it really is focused on this one character. And I really feel like he is just the strong core of the film, as he's a politician, he's nearing the end of his tenure, and he has to make some really crucial decisions to cement his legacy. And I think by the end of the film, really in the second hour, that was when it really clicked in for me. So it was a good film. And then after that, it's time to, head to a party and then do the rest of the night.
Exactly. And I know, Christina, you saw it as well. Did you have some thoughts on it was Tom Servillo, right? His normal...
I feel,
Tony.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I feel...
Close enough.
I have the same feelings about Sorrentino. To me, he has a sort of Fellini complex, and there's a lot of tits and ass in his films, and I'm tired of him, but this was a bit different, and I'm happy about that. And it kind of started out the whole theme for me of the festival in fathers trying to reconnect with their children and looking back at their lives with regret and what will the rest of their lives be from this point on. So that was interesting. I would not agree that this was the best of Sorrentino, but I think there's a few at the beginning of his career that I prefer, but it was really interesting, and I give it to Tony Servillo, plays a fantastic role here, so that was.
And after that, once we got to the night screenings, because Friday is basically kind of like a not even a half day, because you only have night screenings at that time. You have a choice of seeing Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, and Ballad of a Small Player, both in the same location. I think that was the Herzog. And then on the other side was a tribute to Ethan Hawke, and then Hamnet. And just the timing was not exactly right that you were going to be able to really kind of do both, so you really had to make some judicious choices. And I think most of us, opted for Hamnet as the world premiere that we were going to see that night. But Mark, what was your choice that night?
Yeah, so I saw La Grazia with them, so I'll just real quick echo. I agree with what they're saying. I'm not as familiar with Sorrentino's films, but of the three that I've seen, this was by far my favorite of his. It really built up and had a great ending. After that, I did the route of Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, and Ballad of a Small Player.
You and Oprah.
Yeah, I was in good company, even if it might have not have been the stronger path of the two. But those are the two I saw.
Well, because we did all see that, even it was slightly different days, let's jump into Springsteen a little bit, because that was a world premiere. Scott Cooper, one of the friends of the festival kind of directors, which many festivals, whether it's Venice or Cannes or Telluride, have friends of the festival, and that are directors that show their work and often world premiere their work there and do so really successfully. And we're coming right after the Complete Unknown film, the Bob Dylan biopic that had Timothée Chalamet, and now we have a Bruce Springsteen slice of life biopic with Jeremy Allen White. And I think obviously direct comparisons were made and are going to be made for largely the rest of the season, but I want to kind of break down for each of us what we thought of the film. I'll jump in and say I was very torn on it. I liked half of it. I think the musical elements were really incredible. White does all of his own singing, and it feels less like a kind of like mocking impression and just really full-throated and pretty guttural. It was fantastic. Everything else I did not like very much. It's very paint-by-numbers biopic, horribly written female characters, and just mostly pretty unappealing and unfortunate. But I do think the musical elements were enough to make it pretty compelling. Ryan, what did you think of Springsteen?
Well, I wrote the review up on the website, and I think everybody knows here I was really anticipating this film because I love Bruce Springsteen and what he means to me. I even dived a little bit into the review, and I'm similar to you, Eric. I was kind of disappointed by this film from the standpoint of that it was billed so much by Scott Cooper as this sort of sort of regular biopic that we usually get, and for some of the most part that's true, because this isn't a full cradle to grave biopic. This is a slice of Springsteen's career that is vital to the back half of really the Springsteen we know now today, and it gets most of the elements on a basic level of what happened with Nebraska correct, even though, like I said in the review, the context for that is so surface level that it just is, it really is disappointing because it's such rich material to go for. Jeremy Allen White's amazing. Like, if you close your eyes at so many sequences as he's singing, it sounds like Bruce Springsteen. It is maybe the best vocal performance I've ever heard in a musical biopic. And I know that sounds hyperbole because you're at a film festival and you see it here and people want to do that shit all the time and say that online, but I think we can all agree he is extraordinary. And Sophia was sitting next to me, and I know she's a big Springsteen fan. the I'm on Fire sequence, the Nebraska sequence, the
Born in the USA
sequence.
Oh my God.
That could just win him an Oscar, let alone there. I thought Jeremy Strong was really good too as John Landau. Their relationship, very well done. But yeah, there's two major problems with this, which is the female character that is not a real person, and Odessa Young is not very good in the role and underwritten, and Scott Cooper as a writer, who is a really, really terrible writer and does a terrible job at trying to take Warren Zane's book and Springsteen's biopic and make it something. So yeah, it's
one thing you could never accuse us of is being a Disney paycheck employed group.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yep. I just, go read the books, listen to the music, and maybe just see the clips of Jeremy when they hit online.
Christina, what did you think of Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere?
Oh, I echo what you guys are saying, that the performances are great, including Jeremy Strong, and I wasn't that familiar with the relationship between John Landau and Springsteen, and I found that really. But the opening, when they go black and white, back in time, and the whole thing is that his father was quite a brutal man to him, I found that almost Walk Hard level biopic cliche, and they kept doing the same flashback again and again to sort of explain the depression he's in Nebraska. I found that really not very well written, and that female character, which is also just a cliche. The fact that she's a fictional character felt so shoehorned in that it was almost like they had gotten a note from a producer saying, you need to put a woman in here, and they just wrote single woman waitress,
loves her kids and never stops.
Yeah, and so that was not appealing to me. So for me, it was a disappointment.
Yeah, I think there's something really kind of wild about it, that if you had eliminated her character completely, the movie would not have changed at all. And that's I don't know, something to think about. Sophia, what were your thoughts on Springsteen?
My thoughts are pretty similar to everyone. I'll just add that I think one of the most interesting things about Telluride is that it is this, as we've discussed before, really small, intimate environment where you get to have conversations with the talent. There are a lot of Q&As, and if we're thinking about A Complete Unknown and comparing that to this movie, just in terms of the Oscar race or potential campaigns, one huge difference is that Bob Dylan was nowhere to be found when A Complete Unknown came out, when Timothy was doing his press run, James Mangold, the same thing. And with this movie, you have Bruce Springsteen and John Landau at the Q&A, standing ovation for them when they're there, and Bruce talking so lovingly about Jeremy Allen White and how he connected with him for this role because he watched The Bear and saw how internal his performance was in that. And he, I think, will be championing him and this film all year. He told this story about how when he and his sister watched it, she said to him, I'm so glad we have this. And those types of things, no matter what the quality of the film is, and I think this is very middle of the road standard biopic, I think that can really make a huge difference.
I do too, and Mark, I'm going to jump to you in a second, but I do want to mention that Bruce Springsteen is and has been a very big part of this already at the beginning in Q&As, and absolutely has just brought down the house with his completely candid commentary. And when he was asked why he decided to finally say yes to a biopic, his response was, because I'm old and I don't give a fuck. And boy, did the audience eat that up. And that is something that is going to speak to definitely the generation that the movie and the music is talking to as well. Mark, what did you think of Springsteen?
Yeah, there's not a lot that I would disagree with that's been said. The one thing I would say that that I feel about it is, I don't think that was ever going to be a critics movie. And I think with Telluride, you're going to have a lot of critics wing and not a lot of normal people, fans.
You can say normies, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we say normies all the time.
Okay, normies.
It's all right.
I do think it could be a good normies movie and be popular with audiences, since Bruce has a pretty good sized following. So maybe not a critics type movie, but a people's film.
And so let's jump to actually Ballad of a Small Player, because that was the next night. That was the next film to play right after Springsteen. And even though we all saw it, we saw it in a different time, a different space. And this is Edward Berger, and it's his follow-up to Conclave, which was a follow-up to All Quiet on the Western Front. 3 very, very different movies. Ballad is Colin Farrell playing an absolutely washed-up gambler in Macau, trying to just, as any story like this would go, win his last thing to just end it all. And he does a great job with wearing incredibly fantastic velvet suits and costuming that I would be wearing right now if given the opportunity. But I think the overall thought from most of us was not the most successful. I think we all have different relationships to Edward Berger's films in terms of how much we like it, which is great, because when we all agree on something, it's, there's not really a whole lot to say. But that being said, I think Ballad of a Small Player, not one of the most liked things that we saw. I thought it was too frenetic and too desperate and deliberate. It felt like Baz Luhrmann light. And I think we've seen kind of better versions of this type of manic desperation before. That being said, Colin Farrell was absolutely fantastic. He's wonderful. Tilda Swinton is also in it, but I felt she was playing a Wes Anderson character that happened to just walk on the set of Ballad of a Small Player. And from that, I'll just kind of throw it to Ryan and what you thought about Ballad.
Colin Farrell looked good in the suits.
There you go. Work.
I didn't see it because I have a bad relationship to both him and Volker.
We didn't even get to Volker Bergman, the composer.
The composer is not for me. I actually chose to go see a talk with the Hamnets, Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley and Chloe Zhao, and that I think was a wonderful choice because it was a fantastic talk. But we'll get to Hamnet later, so go on.
We will, because if this was my choice, this would be a Paul Mescal podcast.
Yes.
Paul
Mark,
Pod.
it will be Paul Pod. Mark, what did you think of Ballad?
So I'm probably the biggest Edward Berger stan on this podcast.
You're a burger boy.
I'm a burger boy. Conclave and All Quiet were both number 1 for the year for me in their respective years, and so this was my most anticipated film coming to the festival, I would say. But I agree with what Eric said. I think it's very well directed. I think Colin Farrell's terrific. The costumes and whatnot are great. I think it struggles with both narrative and that Volker score, which I think I'm the only one maybe that loves the Conclave and All Quiet score. But in this case, Volker's score was just abrasive from the beginning, and it really kind of took me out right away. So it's a disappointment for me, though I still can respect Berger's, the swing he took here. I think it was something completely different than what he's done before.
Can I actually just jump off of Mark real quick before we get to you, Sophia? I actually didn't have a problem with Volker Bergman's score this go-round because it was the only thing keeping me awake. So, Sophia, go right to you.
It'll definitely keep you awake.
Yeah, so I am not typically a fan of Volker Bertelmann's scores, and this one I think had a similar problem that his scores in All Quiet and Conclave had, which is that they're just very abrasive and don't necessarily match the tone of the film. And I think with this one, I also agree. I loved Colin Farrell in this. I loved watching him, seeing what he was doing next. And I also like a poker movie. Mm-hmm. I love a poker movie. So even though I haven't been as big of a fan of Berger's past works, I thought, maybe this will be the one for me because I heard it was very different. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I will say at the beginning of the movie, I thought, this will actually play really well on Netflix because it is a Netflix film. People watching it at home, I think, could really click with it because it's really fun at the beginning and as you're settling into it and really just following Colin Farrell's character along and figuring him out. And it has this really, good style and energy to it. And then it really slips into a completely different tone and slows down quite a bit. I think, this movie, it's less than 2 hours, but if you were to ask me the feeling of the movie, I would have said 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It feels like it drags a bit.
It does. And we'll go actually right next to the next world premiere of that evening. And I think, without, being too presumptuous, it might have been the most anticipated of for most of us.
Four of the five.
You know, just
Three
to bring back Paul Mescal a little bit. This was the world premiere of Hamnet, directed by Chloe Zhao and starring Mescal and Jessie Buckley, based on the Maggie O'Farrell novel. Really one of the most beautiful and rich novels to come out in the last few years, but also one of the most complicated and seemingly unfilmable. Layers and layers of prose, very little dialogue, and I think it's the thing that we were the most anticipating of exactly how Zhao and O'Farrell, who co-wrote the script together, which, sidebar, I think was exactly the right choice, how they were going to adapt that in a way that was taking the novel and turning it into something cinematic, because they are really two different mediums. They're two different universes. And, you know, it's not going to be any surprise to anybody listening now that this was my most anticipated film. This was my favorite film of the festival. And I don't think now that there is a Telluride that can exist without a Paul Mescal film that doesn't just completely destroy me and become kind of the thing. And that's what this did. I think this film is working on a level that we don't usually see and we don't usually expect. Because I think, and once each of us get to kind of speak to it, I think we were anticipating it, but also maybe expecting that people were going to be a little cold to it, because that is one of the most, that's one of the phrases that happens during festival season as it goes to awards season, where a film can be very respected, but also called cold. And that kind of turns people off. And something happened with Hamnet that was very different from that. And we'll get to it in a little bit, because I want to hear what everybody has to say about the film. Sophia, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I will say too that this world premiere experience is one of my favorite things that I've had happen really in the 3 years that I've gone to Telluride, because Chloe Zhao led us in this like meditation ritual before the film started, and it was something that she did with her cast and crew during the filming of Hamnet. So it felt like this really special communal thing that we all got to experience that just felt so, once you see the film too and you think about it, it just will really connect, I think, with you when you think about just taking a moment, settling down, and really thinking about the world that you are living in and how you're connected to people from centuries ago. And so I was highly anticipating this. This was the screening that, you know, when we got the schedule, we saw there was a bit of conflict here and there with what we would see. I said, I don't care. I have to see Hamnet. That's the one I'm seeing that night. I will see the others another time. This is the one. And I think I just brought a lot of baggage into reading the book too. I used to be a tour guide at the Folger Shakespeare Library in DC. And one of the things in reading the book that really struck me was how O'Farrell really pushed up against decades of Shakespeare scholars and their research specifically into Anne Hathaway, whose name, according to historical records, is actually Agnes, which is the character that Jessie Buckley plays in the film. And so I think that O'Farrell's work of historical fiction, you know, is very radical. And I think what Chloe Zhao and O'Farrell did together with the script is a brilliant feat of adaptation, because they do make changes from the novel, but they didn't bother me. They felt much more cinematic. And this film really is, I think, it's just a great, solid, very sad story that I think everyone can connect with, no matter what your life experience is, and also very artistic. It reminded me of some of my favorite films from Terrence Malick or Jane Campion, and also she's collaborating with a lot of people that worked on The Zone of Interest too, so it has this very distinctive observational quality to this family's everyday life, and I just loved it so much. It was my favorite thing of the festival. Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley are, you know, batting 1,000 with this one. Incredible performances. And I wrote more about all of it in my review, so go read that up on the website if you want a more in-depth exploration of what I thought about Hamnet. But I absolutely loved it, and I think it's her best movie too.
Yeah, and speaking to what Sophia was talking about with that meditation, I recorded it while I was there, and if you want to watch that, you can find that both on my Instagram and Twitter. I apologize in advance for the absolutely shattering tears at the end because it was as devastating as it sounds. Christina, what did you think about Hamnet?
Oh, I was absolutely blown away, and to echo what you were saying, that not only is this a good adaptation, it's every single choice is amazing, because what they've done with the book, which is not in chronological order, here they've put it more in chronological order, just adds to this incredible impact that you get after experiencing their marriage when this tragic loss comes to them. And that's, to me, personally was such a strong part of the film, is the depiction of this marriage, which of course is Shakespeare, and we add so much baggage to knowing that, but you can see this as any marriage suffering under great tragedy, and also being married to an artist and someone who really needs to write and grieve in that way, and what it means for that partner, that they cannot grieve together, but someone has to grieve through their art. And the experience, one of the strongest endings to a movie I've seen in so many years, that I think the hair stands up on my arms just talking about it, thinking about this ending where she discovers what her husband has done when this tragedy has struck through his art, and it's just magnificent. So to me, this was an all-time experience, not just being in Telluride, but a movie-going experience in general. I'm very, very taken by it.
Absolutely, and I think a little bit later we're going to talk about the conversations that we've had with other film goers, and this movie will come back up in that conversation. Ryan, what were your thoughts on Hamnet?
I read the book as well, like you guys. I was a little bit more nervous though about this, just because it's such a hard adaptation. I trust Chloe Zhao pretty much with anything. I mean, I know she gets crapped on by people for Eternals. It's better than half the shit that Marvel does nowadays. And I want to say that the more I've thought on this, and why this was such a special experience, not only just for us, and experiencing this meditation, but what it must have felt like for Chloe Zhao. She had her moment with Nomadland pretty much cut short. We kind of forget about that. She didn't have the traditional Telluride celebration and tributes and all these different things that you could have because of COVID. I mean, they had a drive-in experience with her and Francis, but they didn't really get to share that the traditional way. So this is like the first time she's actually had this in a long time to do it this way, and she did it in a way that is transcendent. I mean, it is one of those movies that you watch and it will be a defining experience of when I went to the 2025 Telluride, I saw Hamnet. That is what this is. And I think it's the best movie of the year. And 20 minutes in, I understood exactly, what she was going to be doing with the material. I loved it. I loved the changes. I felt very much the calmness and steadiness of nature, and the use of almost, it felt like you were saying, Sophia, of Zone of Interest, but Terrence Malick in a lot of ways. It felt like this love story that blossoms out of what is real and art, and then the mystical elements of this as well too, and then this family, and it becomes this family story, and it becomes a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions, and that literally, and then it becomes one of the most compelling, healing films I've ever seen. And there's the last 20 minutes of this movie is devastating. You think about it, you're just going to be a mess. I think Jessie Buckley, the more I thought about it, gives the performance of the year. I think she's pretty magical in this movie, and I think counterbalancing her is Paul Mescal, who, I mean, we all love Paul, but this is, like Sophia said in her review, the culmination of his career so far. And these three, Zhao, Mescal, and Buckley, They were attached at the hip all weekend long, and rightfully so, because they're going to be attached at the hip this entire season, because Focus has a movie here that can move the needle, and something that everyone on board should be proud of. It's a truly special cinematic experience.
And Mark, what were your thoughts?
So yeah, I'm
Hated it. No, I'm just kidding.
Stop it. I'm the only one I believe that didn't read the book, so I came in with it with not knowing much other than.
I'm sad that you still can't learn how to read right now.
Listen, in Ohio we don't read.
Hey, I grew up in Ohio. That's not your excuse.
I can't use that.
Well, you can.
I'm busy playing games on my phone.
Boys in Ohio can't read. There you go.
Listen, what more can I say that hasn't already been said? Other than I will say that I have been a big critic of Chloe Zhao. I haven't liked most of what she's done. I like the writer. If those you guys listen to this podcast, you know how I feel about No Then. So I kind of came into it a little less excited than I think.
You want to talk about No
everyone
Then
else.
again?
No, let's
Just
not.
to get people
Let's just
pissed off at
not.
it? Okay.
But I will say, I agree with everything that was said. I do think this is the performance of Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal's career. Though still very young in both of their careers, they are both perfect, and Chloe Zhao's created something extremely special here. I left the theater after sobbing. I left, and I remember just walking. I don't even remember much of the walk back to the condo from the theater, but by the time I reached our condo, I realized my mouth had been agape the entire time. And you kind of had to lift my jaw off the floor, kind of. So, yeah, I echo what's been said. It was definitely my favorite of the festival as well. I think it might have been all 5 of ours.
Yeah, I mean, I can't pretend that it's not my favorite. Because I literally said it was, and that I think it's going to be the best film of the year.
It's going to be hard to beat for the best one, and I think.
Well, there's some stuff coming.
There's stuff coming.
It absolutely
There's a
could
movie
change.
coming in 3 weeks.
But I said I think that
But the
it
bar
is.
is high.
The bar is very high.
Yeah.
The bar is very high, actually.
And
Yeah.
I think
There's
you're
only
gonna,
one man that can do it.
I think you're going to see in the next few weeks when we update Oscar predictions, at least 1 or 2 of us are going to have this film in #1 spot.
Yeah, I think so too. I want to talk a little bit about some of the Venice to Telluride crossovers, because when we talk about a lot of these festivals, they are happening really right on top of each other, and Venice and Telluride very specifically. There's a lot of animosity and fighting between the 2 festivals, including what was revealed earlier this week, and that is that Jay Kelly, which had its world premiere at Venice, the new Noah Baumbach starring George Clooney, the Italian government and the Venice Film Festival held the planes of the Jay Kelly crew at the airport so that they could not make the immediate jump to the U.S. to Telluride. So it's a part of this conversation. It's part of the festival thing that isn't a part of the audience and the viewers, but those are the people that are very directly affected and impacted by it. And it's a lot of, these are men-driven festivals other than Telluride, which is the only major festival that is directed and programmed by a woman, by Julie Hunsinger. So the dick waving that happens between Toronto and Venice and Cannes has the mighty fight of Julie Hunsinger to come in and kind of course correct a little bit. And she did. Not only did she steal a few premieres out of Toronto, but she just really is a powerful figure in.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention what you were saying. First, she called Venice the evil place, so that says something
Yes.
there. And also but one interesting thing is that Thierry Frémaux, the Cannes, was actually there this weekend in Telluride, so it seems to be that relationship is something else.
Well, I think the difference in time and space between Cannes and Venice Telluride is enough so that fighting doesn't really happen. The fighting really happens
Maybe
between.
a Barbera thing too.
Yes, and this is Barbera's last year, thank God. So we'll see what happens next year when we will have another woman heading a film festival. So I hope it's women supporting women, but we'll see what that turns out to be. But with that, I do want to look at some of the crossovers that happened, which include Jay Kelly and Begonia and Frankenstein, which was one of the TBAs, one of the secret screenings, and again, one of the things that Julie swooped in from Toronto as the actual kind of North American premiere. But I want to start with Jay Kelly, since that what we referenced earlier, and that is George Clooney starring as a movie star, trying to reconcile with his career both as a father and as a star, and how that's impacted his family. I think, again, not to be too much of a get-along gang here, but we all liked it quite a bit. Not simply for the amount of in-jokes that happened with George Clooney and Jay Kelly as a character playing themselves, because that is kind of part of what makes a story like this feel inside, as well as something that an average viewer can see and understand. But this also stars Adam Sandler and Laura Dern, Billy Crudup in one of the most incredible sort of single scene sequences of anything I've seen this year, and others. But I want to throw it to everybody else. Sophia, what were your thoughts on Jay Kelly?
Yeah, so I really enjoy Noah Baumbach as a filmmaker. Frances Ha is my favorite of his, and still is after this one too, but I really enjoyed this. I know that a lot of people here really loved it. I would say I'm more in the like camp, but really did like it. I am a sucker for movies about movies and movie stars and that industry, and I feel like the opening of this movie is very dazzling and well put together. That's Lena Sandgren's cinematography, especially. I think this movie really has an incredible above and below the line team. I also really thought that a lot of the characters were very funny. There is a great Rohrwacher moment that I really liked. But I think the standouts are obviously George Clooney and Adam Sandler, really. Adam Sandler's character was the one who really broke my heart in this. But I didn't feel as much from this, I think, as I wanted to. I think that might come in repeat viewings. But I didn't feel that kind of like zap in my heart that I expected. But it does have a really interesting gamble of an ending that I'm excited to hear people talk about all year, because I do think it works, but it's an interesting one. I think it combines a lot of techniques that we've seen in films, actually, where filmmakers do semi-autobiographical storytelling, and this really isn't that in the same way, but it's interesting to think about, I think, especially in where it's coming in his career as a filmmaker. And he also got one of the medallions, so seeing his tribute I thought was really cool, and just all the little clips from his previous entries. So yeah, I liked it, and I think that this really is Netflix's big player this season.
Yeah, I mean, it was meta on top of meta, because we were sitting there watching a Noah Baumbach tribute and clips, and then we watched Jay Kelly, which is an actor culminating in this Lifetime Achievement Award at a film festival, watching his clips. And I don't want to do too much more than that, other than throw it to everybody else here. And Ryan, what did you think of Jay Kelly?
I thought it was pretty masterful. I think if it's not Baumbach's best, it's certainly up there. I think that there's a lot more profoundness to this movie than I thought, and I think that you can look at this film as this examination of Clooney, the movie star, all that different stuff. I think that there's much more to that, because this character is a little bit more prickly than Clooney is, and I had a chance to speak with Baumbach a little bit about this, and he kind of confirmed a lot of what I thought about the film, which is that you go in thinking this is like about George Clooney and his persona and everything, and it's not. It's deconstructing that. And this movie is very funny. Sophia's right. This is a very funny movie, just like many Noah Baumbach movies are. But there's a lot of melancholy and a lot of cynicism about the industry. And the idea of what you leave behind and what you sacrifice in order to make audiences go to the theater every week. And I think that that's a really interesting way of examining a movie about Hollywood, because he's doing this not just through Jay Kelly, but he's doing this through Ron, played by Adam Sandler, who's his manager. He does this through Liz, played by Laura Dern. He even does the sort of opposite with Billy Crudup's character. He does a like sort of sideways version of this with Patrick Wilson's character, and the ripple effects of what it is like to leave behind the normal things that we take for granted in order to continue to chase a dream of popularity, fame, a celebrated filmography, whatever the case may be. And I think that I didn't see it coming. And also, I think besides Noah Baumbach, the other person that should get a ton of credit is Emily Mortimer, who is in the film and plays hilariously his stylist, who wants to give Emmanuel Macron a haircut, her first president. But also, Baumbach is great as a great collaborator. I mean, his partner and wife and Barbie collaborator, Greta Gerwig, is inside of this, even though, they work on each other's projects all the time. I mean, that's where Francis Ha comes, his other best film in all of this. But I think that he has made something genuinely profound here. And it is, as of now, of the Netflix titles, I think Sophia is absolutely correct. It is the one that will be the priority. That Q&A, the tribute to Baumbach turned into a roast of Baumbach between Dern and between Sandler. George Clooney was not able to come because he had a sinus infection that wouldn't allow him to get on the plane, but he will be in New York, confirmed by Noah Baumbach. He will be at all the film festivals. He told me that himself. George will be there, and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with, because they have a movie here that might be one of the strongest films that Netflix has had in years, in terms of star power, in terms of quality. And the other film that we're haven't seen, none of us have seen, is House of Dynamite. But yeah, I think Netflix has got a real winner here.
Well, I think one of the neat things about Jay Kelly is that it kind of is the Venn diagram of what feels like the two main subject matters that are happening this season. And that's movies about movies, and also really complicated dads and their relationships with their kids. And this is why I want to throw to Christina and Mark, both as parents of young kids, both here at festivals away from their kids, not to kind of like extract any tears or emotions or anything, but it is a big part of this film where Jay Kelly as a character is constantly away from his kids, and the other characters are too. So is Adam Sandler, so is Laura Dern. They are constantly having to leave either in the middle of something or just being not present in order to be present for somebody else. So I don't know, am I Jay Kelly in that? I don't know, whatever. I don't know how that works. But I want to talk to Mark. What do you think about Jay Kelly and that specifically?
Yeah, I'll say, like Chloe Zhao, I have never really been a big Noah Baumbach fan. There's some that I like, some I don't. This one really struck a deep chord. I couldn't talk about it for the first hour or so after seeing it. I was so emotional, and if I tried to talk about it, I would weep further. In fact, I don't think I've cried at a movie, as sad as Hamnet was, I don't think I've cried as hard at a movie since maybe La La Land in 2016. Like, it's been a while since I've cried that hard. So I really connected with the decisions and the issues that George Clooney's character is facing. And I have a son that's a senior in high school, and I had to miss one of his last football games of his high school career. And
don't bring up football too much.
Right, and I forgot. This is so I missed out on a moment for my child to come to this festival. It's a choice I made, just like Clooney made his choices, and it just struck me very deeply. I would say, like I mentioned, Hamnet, I think is the best film of the festival, but I think my personal favorite would be Jay Kelly, and I think the only other thing I would add that we haven't talked about so far is Nicholas Bertel's score was amazing, and maybe my favorite. I really love the Sinners score and F1 too, honestly, but this is up there with those two.
Yeah, it's to your point and to Sophia's, the below the line here is absolutely ridiculous,
So who's who?
especially for a contemporary film.
And I want to say too, because there's so many layers of casting in this film, I do think this, when I do update my predictions, I might have this in the number one spot for casting. I thought the casting in this was awesome.
Well, one of the neat things about the Q&As that we saw was that every side character said they felt like a full person, like a full character, and not just I have one line to read, which I thought was kind of really cool. Christina, I'd love to hear what you have to think about that, both as, you know, obviously a fan of film, a cinephile, a person in this industry, and a person married to somebody in this industry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you mentioned those two big themes of there's the third one we talked about, and that's healing through art, or trying to connect through art, which so many, since they're dealing with movies about filmmakers, about writers, about artists who are expressing themselves through their art, I think it's fascinating. And this one was really profound. This is the movie that actually surprised me the most coming into it, because there were some mixed feelings out of Venice, and I was thinking, oh, this could be some light TV movie type thing, and I was really taken by it, and it's incredibly funny. I laugh out loud funny, and then crying at the end. And as a parent, this is what we struggle with, is the guilt of making choices to leave and do something. You know, I've learned with age that a mother who feels good and is doing what I have to do and working and is a better mother. So that, in that sense, I think I've grown, and maybe George Clooney hadn't at the end of this movie. And there's certain choices that he could have made throughout his career to make that better. But it was a very interesting look. So, and for me, this was one of Noah Baumbach's best. I was the one movie of Telluride that surprised me the most.
And I think something that's really interesting that both Jay Kelly and Hamnet do is they take something that can feel like potentially a lot of navel gazing, which is, you know, when you're talking about an industry and it's too inside, you don't feel like, as a regular viewer, that you don't have an in point in any of this. These are rich people, or these are people that are just you're never going to have the life that they have. And I think something that Hamnet and Jay Kelly both do really successfully is bring it down to a non-meta level and a very relational level. Whether that is, you know, two parents that both have full-time jobs and don't have as much time for their kids between 3 and 6 o'clock, whatever it might be. And I think it's something that they both do extraordinarily well. I want to go to then now a few things, again, that came from Venice, and just maybe some things that we saw that we really, really want to talk about. Begonia, we really have to talk about. Started at Venice, jumped right over to Telluride. It's the new Yorgos Lanthimos. With Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. And I know we have a lot of thoughts about it. I don't want to go too far because I want to talk a little bit about what our experience was at Telluride and talking to people. But let's do some very brief thoughts about Begonia. For myself, I felt like it was a bit of like a sister companion piece to Eddington, which means I really loved Eddington, but very challenging in the sense that it didn't want to be so completely on the side of one thing that you felt like there was nowhere to kind of go. You were never going to go outside of your bubble. It is about a pair of cousins who kidnap a very high-ranking CEO, played by Emma Stone, of a company that's sort of somewhere between Amazon and like a pharma company. And they think that she's an alien, and they conduct a lot of really violent experiments on her to prove or disprove that she's an alien. And this is, as it is a Lanthimos film, very darkly comic. But I think your feelings about it may vary by the end of how successful that it was. For myself, I felt like I kept giving it the benefit of the doubt as long as I could until I really kind of couldn't anymore. I think the performances are really good, but I think he has gotten into an area now that maybe is going to be really difficult for him to get out of. And I did love Poor Things, but I think it kind of started with Poor Things and then Kinds of Kindness. Also something that I like, but I wonder if he's ever going to be able to get back to The Favorite. Or honestly, even Dogtooth. There's a nihilism that is entertaining and fun, and then there's a nihilism that is, I really don't want to see this anymore. And I think Begonia got to that point where it just became, where is my entertainment value in this? Am I a liberal, conservative? Am I laughing that this CEO is being tortured? Am I laughing that these cousins are idiots? Where am I in this conversation? Who am I siding with? Who am I laughing at? And I think that's a little bit, not that it has to be one or the other, but I think it's kind of where it struggled a little bit. Mark, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm one of the ones who's higher on it as well. I liked it. I thought it was really funny at times, though again, a little bizarre and eccentric. I think what I would focus on is Jesse Plemons' performance. I think he was incredible, and not to keep being hyperbolic about the performance of their career, but it might be the best that I've seen from Jesse. I'm a big fan.
Sophia, what were your thoughts on Begonia?
I will go as deeply into this as Yorgos Lanthimos, which is to say I will be very surface level and short. And that is that I saw a lot of comments about this movie coming out of Venice, and even at Telluride before I saw it, that this was, a triumph and a movie of our time and his most accessible movie. And I just was watching this and thinking, am I watching a different cut of the film? What's happening here? I think it just failed for me on almost every level except for the performances. And I have nothing really to recommend about it. I think it's just a very shallow, completely hollow exploration of low-hanging fruit topics of our time.
Ryan, Begonia, let's go.
I'd like to take the drugs that anybody over at Venice were on at that, because, and I'm just going to say this up front, and I hope Julie's listening, I will never leave Telluride, because I'd have to go to Venice and have to be on the side with some of these people that don't know what they're talking about. This is one of the worst movies of the year, period. This is up there with Alpha, Splitsville, Holland as pure garbage. And Yorgos Lanthimos does not have the juice, folks. He's a guy that is continuously doing the same thing over and over again. And for a lot of people out there that say that about, and Eric and I talked about this earlier today, a lot of the similar complaints are given to somebody like Wes Anderson. And I find beauty in a lot of complexity in Wes Anderson's work. And within Yorgos Lanthimos' world, he's continuously doing the same shtick over and over again. And it's to lesser effect. And I actually think that this is sort of an insulting view of even conspiracy theorists. It has no opinions whatsoever on big pharma, big tech, and it's violent for the sake of being just kind of brutal. It's deeply offensive. It has one of the most offensive characters, I think, in the way that character is resolved. I think people need to call Yorgos Lanthimos out on his shit about it and not celebrate this. And I'm going to say it. I think I do like Plemons. Plemons is always good. But she's not Katharine Hepburn. And that's all you need to know.
And with that, Christina, what did you think about Begonia?
Yeah, I'm going to be brief as well. It did not work for me. And you were mentioning Eddington, which didn't work for you, didn't work for me. But that's
I loved it.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, worked for you, didn't work for me as well. Because I think it has the same problem. And it's this putting cliche type metaphors about topics like toxic masculinity or politics, and it's so surface level and it's so cliche that I just it just doesn't work for me. And so this one was not my cup of tea. I don't have to elaborate because you, Scott Paul, said more than enough about that. But yeah.
And I want to move to another Venice to Telluride major player, and that was Frankenstein, which we all saw, at least of this recording, last night. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of great things that we're going to say. Apologies to all involved. But I will say the structure of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein I really, really loved. I liked the prologue. I liked the part 1 too. I liked it was, almost a Rashomon style version of the history of Victor Frankenstein and his monster, the creation and the experience that each had after it happened. Oscar Isaac is playing Dr. Frankenstein, and Jacob Elordi is playing the monster. Okay, so I'll just say that it was much campier than I ever would have thought that it was going to be. And I've seen Crimson Peak. I've seen The Shape of Water. There is an intentional, not silliness, but a little bit of camp involved in each of those films because they're working on horror and fantasy concepts that are extreme and a little bit funny. But I think what happens in Frankenstein is the kind of over-the-top summer stock theater type of performing that just it wasn't what I was expecting, which I think is part of maybe, my own hopes and expectations of what this was going to be. I thought his version of Pinocchio is one of my favorite films of all time. And so my hope for this was pretty high, but I really thought that Oscar Isaac was really silly and over the top. And I thought that Jacob Elordi, as much as I love him, was sort of giving Edward Scissorhands meets Zoolander in his model poses, in his face. He was too pretty in this. He was never, until kind of the end, he was never ugly enough as a monster. He always looked really hot. And you know what? I'm okay with feeling like I want to fuck a monster. I'm okay with that.
Like, what are we?
I'm okay with that. This might feel like
we're at that part of the show.
This might feel like
you've been waiting around for when I fuck a monster.
Refill your wine.
It's right now.
I'm just getting a head start on the
Check
therapy
off your
session
bingo
that I'm going to
cards.
have tomorrow. But I was watching, going, all right, one, how many times can I hear the name Victor over and over again? But I was just like, I needed something more grimy. And I wasn't getting that from this monster. I wasn't getting that from this story. Great gowns, beautiful gowns. It looked like a Lady Gaga concert at times, so I was here for that. But otherwise, it was a tough sit, and at 2 hours and 40 minutes, that was rough. Yeah. It was rough.
Surprisingly boring to do.
And that's the thing. A Del Toro movie that is boring?
That's not.
My goodness. Please don't give me that. Mark, what'd you think about Frankenstein?
No, I won't add much other than I think great craftsmanship as far as costume, set decoration. The sound was really good too. I think that could be a sleeper contender maybe for that category.
Or it's Barco.
Or it's Barco. Barco gave us popcorn.
Yeah, sponsor of the show.
Yeah,
not our show, but show.
Aside from that, very boring and a tough watch that late at night.
Christina, what'd you think of Frankenstein?
I was so confused by the choices that Guillermo made with this movie. And I love Guillermo. Just that I thought it was 12 o'clock at night and I had to wait to talk to you guys after to see if I had misunderstood something about this movie. No, I agree. It was camp, but in the wrong way. And Oscar Isaacs was just like nails on a chalkboard for me. I did not understand the performance he was giving. Like, it was like everyone was in a different movie. And in terms of something that really bothered me, I don't know if the listeners have seen, but we saw a movie in Cannes called Alpha, which was a terrible movie where there was this makeup of people sort of becoming marbleized and dying in this white marble type makeup.
You wouldn't like it,
And
Marcus.
the Frankenstein looked exactly like this.
Yeah.
So it got me on the wrong foot from the very beginning. So this was, and if I talk about Jay Kelly being the big positive surprise, this was my big negative surprise, because I really came into it with all the passion that I have for Guillermo del Toro's wonderful love of fantasy and Pinocchio and emotion, and the one movie about fathers and parenting and everything that just felt flat for me. I did not. I'm kind of surprised at how much I don't like it.
Sophia, what'd you think?
I'll just add that, yeah, Kate Hawley's costumes and Tamara Deverell's production design, aces all around, like, should be celebrated all season long. The set decoration, in particular, the mirrors, the design of everything is just stunning. And everything that Mia Goth's characters, plural, wear in this movie is just absolutely stunning. I will defend Jacob Elordi a bit because I think it's okay for a monster to be hot.
I'm okay with that. I think maybe I was struggling with my own feelings.
Okay, that's fair. But I thought this was a cool swing and a different type of performance from him. It was just interesting to see him step into this, and I really think I'm going to give this movie another shot at a different time, because seeing it at 10 o'clock at night, it was just too late. After like a busy day of festival going, like, I need to see this at noon.
Oh, I didn't mention the CGI wolves, which is also very confusing because it was
True.
so bad. I'm gonna give it a shot too.
Yeah.
Perhaps too tired.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was also a return to a level of gore and violence for Del Toro that we have not seen in a minute. And it is incredibly graphic and bone-crunching and bloody and violent, which is fine. It's okay. But it also did get a little bit repetitive. Like, how many times can you snap one guy in half? Apparently 4 or 5.
Oscar Isaac's back is unbreakable.
Yeah.
Apparently. His leg is not, but his back is. Ryan.
I liked it.
Yes.
I don't know what you people are smoking. Listen, last couple weeks, I've been watching Del Toro's filmography. And I think that this movie he's been wanting to make for like 20 years. And I think he kind of nailed the vision he's going to do of this in a way that I was really happy with. Because from the get-go of all this, there is that really wonderful prologue and set piece on the ship, which they built. Everything in this is built.
The opening set piece of this is insane.
They gave him
That's
incredible.
great. That's great.
the best part.
They gave him $140 million to make this movie, which is literally insane in the modern era. And yet, this is coming off of, this is the second part of passion projects. Pinocchio was a passion project, and this is
Shape of Water was too.
sure.
Yeah.
And this movie, like, yeah, but he didn't wait 20 years to make this, you know, and he didn't.
He did. He
No.
loved Creature of the
Black Lagoon?
He when I was
Yeah.
at Telluride there,
Yeah.
he spoke about how much that.
Oh,
played
were
into
you
his
like
childhood.
one of the other people that went out and, like, you know, followed him in the street?
I was actually. I did sit.
That's a
with him for
great
like
story.
20
It's one of the
minutes.
great Telluride
It was
stories.
probably my favorite Telluride moment.
People in the
was that.
streets.
It was
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But anyway,
you're correct. He's
so-
a passion project.
So, watching the opening of this, it was a flashback to, like, Blade 2. Of watching this sort of grisly, graphic violence done on a level that is honestly badass and also elegant at the same time. The makeup design, the costumes, the production design, nobody does it like Guillermo del Toro. Like, and that is to the level of something like what you said, Eric, of Crimson Peak, or even to the details of Shape of Water or Nightmare Alley. Then you have the father-son connection, which is that of in Blade 2, in Hellboy, in Pinocchio, and you have also just, and you have these complicated characters, a complicated male character at the center of this, Victor, played by Oscar Isaac. And I do think Isaac mostly succeeds in his performance. I do think that his accent goes a little bit all over the place. I think that I do think that the romantic element between the creature, Elizabeth, and Victor is undercut in this movie, and it resolves itself actually too quickly. If I could say one thing about it, is that I wish that the third part was a little longer.
Oh,
And no, hear me out. In establishing more of this hatred and connection and rekindling that's in the book and in the original story, instead of one of the more laughable moments, I will say, of the movie is between what I forgot the actor's name that plays the old man in this. Does anybody remember?
The Harry Potter guy?
Yeah. Yes.
The blind guy?
Yes.
That is David Bradley.
Yes. So David Bradley, who was also Geppetto in Pinocchio, he plays the blind old man and is straight out of Young Frankenstein, and that's all I could think of was the Gene Hackman sequence in Young Frankenstein. And like, especially when there's the whiskey bottle that breaks and it's just like the soup and everything, and the fact that like we're going to be saying the spirit of the North on every podcast now for the remainder of the year is going to be really funny to me, because I was laughing so hard. But I think the movie mostly succeeds, and I think it's built off the back of its crafts. It is a craft showcase.
Yes.
And so that alone, for
Yes,
me,
that's true.
is something.
Except for the CGI.
No, some of the
Yeah.
some of the CGI doesn't work, but some of it also is really inventive, like the recreations, and also the lighting sequences and everything. So. I think that the movie is good, and I would like to see it more, to maybe, see if some of those rougher parts, get better especially I think a little bit of Elordi's stuff, but I do think he's swinging in terms of for the fences in terms of a performance more than even Oscar Isaac, and I was kind of interested in the inflections that he was giving as the creature. It is, and I was also kind of imagining Andrew Garfield playing it.
Well, yes, Andrew Garfield was originally cast
Yeah.
as the monster and dropped out to do After the Hunt. So
good choices, Andrew. Really
What-
smart. You're just doing a great, girl.
Both ways.
You know, this-
There was no right call
Exactly,
there.
no right way.
yeah, I'm not sure how it would have been a lot different, other than the fact that
Netflix
Jacob
money,
Elordi is
Amazon
like
money.
6'4", and a big part of Victor Frankenstein's needs is somebody that is that tall, so that they can patch together
That's good stuff.
this human.
Go see Coppola's Dracula for costumes.
Yes, I think, and that's, again, I love Del Toro. I love a passion project. Sometimes I think what happens with a passion project is that it becomes so all-consuming that there is no personal editing in that project. It becomes really all-consuming, and I sort of feel like that happened here in a way that, at least for me, didn't happen with Pinocchio, which also was a long gestating passion project. And that's objectivity, that's subjectivity sort of meeting itself. I want to that's the primary of the large films and the world premieres. I do want to mention quite a few things that we saw that came from other festivals that we generally all really liked that we saw, including If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Pillion, Urchin, Sentimental Value, The Secret Agent, It Was Just an Accident, a lot of Cannes films, Nouvelle Vague, so many films, but
Never enough time.
there's never enough time for a 3/4 day festival. I do want to then now kind of go to everybody to talk about, and Christina, you did a little bit, about the film that maybe was the biggest surprise for you. No matter how you identify or what that means to you, as well as the conversations that we had of films that people really, really liked. I think a lot of us, because we were in the same conversations at the same time, maybe we're a little bit surprised that the film that people kept talking about over and over was Hamnet. and that crossed all lines of gender and age and anything else. And it was a really big surprise. And the other surprise with that film specifically is that this entire group on this podcast here, which is a very different group of people, all gravitated in the same and different ways to this film. That was a surprise for me in this festival, in the best way possible, in a way that I didn't think was absolutely going to happen at all.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled that this had such broad appeal, because it is a relentless, sad, beautiful movie that doesn't. Not many people want to see that, go into that emotional state. So yeah, that was one. I just want to mention that another movie that everyone kept talking about was Tuner, which we didn't mention. Also a premiere here at Telluride. Dustin Hoffman, Leo Woodall, an entertaining movie about a young piano tuner and his works under Dustin Hoffman, which we all, I think, here also found very sweet. It's not a perfect movie, but... And that one, in every single line I was in, people were talking about Tuner.
That was, yeah, absolutely. That was a film that has like audience award vibes all through it. And it's really wonderful. Performances are great. It's paint by numbers to an absolutely inside the lines degree. But the performances kind of elevate it to something that is really quite nice. And Mark, what did you think about what you heard from people and what you thought was the biggest surprise for yourself?
Yeah, I think we can all probably agree that Hamnet and Tuner were the two we were hearing the most about. I think, if I remember correctly. Biggest surprise for me would either be how much I loved Hamnet or how much I disliked. I don't know why I hate saying that, but how much I didn't like Ballad of a Small Player, which hurts me still to say.
I'm gonna tell him you said it.
I know, God. Listen, I think, and again, it's nothing to do with Berger. I think it's completely the script and the score. But yeah, I think that's probably my biggest surprises if I had to list them.
You do, because I asked you to.
Yeah, because you did. Right? Yeah, I think that's where I go.
Sophia, what about you?
I mean, mine was really just how often Hamnet kept coming up in every conversation. And it was funny, we were talking to, Christina and I were talking to these women sitting in front of us this morning when we saw Cover Up, the Laura Poitras excellent documentary, highly recommend it. And they were talking about their husbands being grown men crying during it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like across the board love for this.
Yeah, and just everyone was so moved by it, I think. And what also surprised me again is that, I mentioned filmmakers like Jonathan Glazer and Jane Campion when I talk about this film, but like you were saying at the beginning, Eric, it does not have that chilliness or academic feel, I think sometimes that films like this could have. It instead has, I think, just this triumphant moment of feeling at the end that anyone can connect to, and it worked.
It worked.
It's the movie that we're going to be talking about from this festival. And what's interesting is that while this festival is happening, Venice is also going on, and out of Venice, a lot of these movies are getting pretty tepid reactions. There isn't a ton of enthusiasm. So right now I feel like, the story of the moment, the reaction of right now is Hamnet is this great contender and film emerging from the fall festival season.
But can I just mention that Sentimental Value out of Cannes had a tremendous amount of love here at Telluride as well. And it's just the momentum for that movie. And another film about how art heals and a father trying to reconnect with his daughter. Love this movie, and Renate Rensve, Jessie Buckley, and Rose Byrne from these three female performances for me are the performances of the year, and I think we're going to keep talking about them all through this season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Ryan, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, people liked Hamnet, and they told us about it. It was pretty rad. Didn't really get the vibe on old Frankie because everybody was tired. Begonia, people fell asleep through that film. I heard snores in my audience for that.
Wow.
And
it's wild to fall asleep.
That's a hard one to fall asleep.
I mean, I wanted to leave.
Yeah. I think that the interesting thing outside of Hamnet, because everybody's already mentioned that, and I agree with everything there. Some of the people that I did talk to was about the positivity that they did find in Jay Kelly. And that is a contrast to the reactions that came out of Venice. And there's this, once again, this sort of tug and pull between the Venice films that came over here and the tepid response that they had over there and the mostly positive ones that they saw here. And it is this ongoing thing that we continue to see, not just within the festivals, but we see within the Academy, and we see within the American side of the Academy and the international side of the Academy. And I know that this is not just, it's not just press I'm talking about here. We're going on, and seeing the reactions from, from the people there at Venice. It's the same thing at Cannes. And so, I think that, the films that came out of here looking great are Hamnet, and I think Jake Kelly really did a great job. And it wasn't I think all the neon titles did great out of here, because not just sentimental value, Secret Agent, from the people I talked to, they really loved that.
Yes.
Responded with that. Jafar Panahi being at the festival and receiving his tribute was very powerful. That and so, at the same time over at Venice, I know we're not talking about that, but Park Chan-wook's film, which has been one of the most celebrated films over there, is about to go to Toronto. It's another neon contender. They have 4 films that they could, easily get in. I mean, we all agree that sentimental value is their number one, but all 3 of these films play really well, and they have passionate fan bases around them, and everybody, between the filmmakers and the actors, between Renata and Wagner Moura, who was, just, what a snacktopus. It's nice. It's nice to know that studio is carrying over all the success that they had from Cannes over there. And then, the 2 Cozy Richard Linklater films did really well too.
Yep.
A lot of people really just like how we said they would, like with Blue Moon and with Nouvelle Vague. People really like those films, and so I think those are mostly just going to be great films that are, I think, going to be palate cleansers to some of these heavier things, like watching Nouvelle Vague after Hamnet. It's not going to be a bad thing, I think. Or watching Blue Moon after you watch
If I Had Legs.
If I Had Legs, I'd kick you.
Perfect.
You know what I mean? Then, it's not a... I think everything pretty much did at the festival. There wasn't a movie here outside of, maybe our thoughts. There wasn't a film that really did terribly here. There wasn't, I wouldn't say, a movie that, didn't do great. I mean, I think our screening at the Galaxy of Begonia there was a lot of people going like, and I could hear them walking out going like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean? But that's a movie that happens every year at this festival. I remember when Bones and All happened. We remember when Saltburn happened. There were people like that. And yet it still carried over and people had their fan bases for it. So
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think just before we close, I do want to say something, and that is that one of the things that I loved about this very specific year of the festival was, in so many of our conversations, all of us ran into people that follow AwardsWatch and listen to the podcast, which means you're probably listening right now. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate everybody that talked to us about how much they like the podcast and they like the site. It is something that means a great deal to us. It means that not just, that we're having an impact, that we're having a conversation with people in the internet, and then we get to have that conversation with you in person and in real life. And it meant a great deal to all of us. It meant a great deal to me, and I'm incredibly grateful to everybody that we got to talk to this weekend that was a follower, a fan, a film fan, and everything. It just it meant a great deal, and we all appreciate you very, very much. And with that, I want to close with where everybody can follow and find and read everybody on this podcast. And I'll start with Mark Johnson.
You can follow me on Twitter at MarkLinksMovie, and I have the article, The Awards Alchemist. And I've enjoyed the wine tonight. What are we pointing at me for?
Nothing, Mark. You're fine,
It's been
Mark.
a great time. Thank you for my first Telluride with the AwardsWatch crew. I really
Yes,
agree
this
with
is Mark's first with us, so who
do
doesn't
it.
love to pop a cherry?
We'll do a reassessing in a couple of months,
We'll
and
see,
and
we'll see if I'll
you know,
still be
we'll
the
see
awards
what-
alchemist next time.
Sophia, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd at Sophia Sim. You can find my writing on this festival and others at AwardsWatch, and you can find my podcast, Oscar Wilde, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Ryan, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky when I'm not heating up soup at the Montrose and Hampton Inn, at Ryan McQuaid 77. You can find all my reviews, which I have the review of Jade Kelly and Springsteen. God, I couldn't even remember the damn title of it. Already up on the website, Frankenstein to come. And you'll catch myself and Sophia upcoming with a ton of our other writers at TIFF. We'll have some episodes coming up with that next week. If you like podcasts, we have the Director Watch podcast. We're starting the new series, the Ozu series as well. Late spring came up just briefly, like yesterday, when you guys got to hear that episode. Sorry, we were at a film festival and forgot to post it, but we're gonna do better.
That's on me.
We're gonna do better this week, right, Eric?
Yes.
And we're gonna do better because we're gonna release early summer. Not early. It's gonna be on Thursday, but early summer. But it's a great conversation with me and Jay, and yeah, you can find that here at AwardsWatch.com.
Yes, Christina, where can people find you on the internet?
First, before I say that, I want to say thank you to Awards Watch that I get to be a little corner of your family. This is the second big festival this year with you guys, and the third time I'm with you at Telluride, and it's just such a joy. You guys are so smart, and we have such great conversations. I love, this was my first year with Mark, as well as
She's
Jorge.
part of the committee, Mark.
Yes.
Yes. Jorge is not here with
Jorge's
us
not
right
here,
now.
and he was so
Oh,
wonderful
from
to get
Jorge.
spend time with him.
Jorge, you're
Also,
already automatically welcome
just
back.
We love you, Jorge.
No committee for you.
So thank you. I really love you all as friends and as colleagues. And you can find me, I have my show Pop Culture Confidential with a bunch of interviews, stuff from Telluride, but also going forward you'll find interviews with films we've talked about and things coming up. And on Twitter, Instagram, I'm Christina Biro.
And you can always find me on awardswatch.com. On socials, it's AwardsWatch everywhere except for Twitter, which is awards_watch.
Boo.
And yeah, well, what are you going to do?
We'll find them.
Exactly. And again, I appreciate everybody for listening. I thank you all for following, and goodbye.